morning, everybody. My name is Ian Fishwick. I'm the Chief Exec of AdEPT Telecomm PLC, and you are?
Good morning, I'm John Swate. I'm the Finance Director of AdEPT.
Okay. I think it's fairly clear why you're all here, because you're looking for decent investments. I suppose one of the questions really is, why are we here as an entity? We find ourselves in a rather strange situation where we did quite a big acquisition on the 1st of August 2018, and without oversimplifying, the city was kind of on holiday. And therefore we find ourselves in a strange situation where this morning the mid-share price is £3.10p. And this gentleman here, if you just wave and identify yourself, Mike. Mike Jeremy is the research analyst from Northland. Mike did a very independent, very detailed review of what had happened, and he says the target share price is £4. So we're miles apart at the moment between where we sit and where it's meant to be. Now, why is that? Particularly when we're already the fastest growing share price in telco over the last 2.5 years. So we're going to tell you the story, okay? Now I've got your attention. Let's go. We're going to explain a transformation as to how a pretty old-fashioned telecoms company turned into a managed service businesses for IT, unified communications, voice, connectivity, the whole lot. Now, when people talk about transformation, it tends to really be a bit of a tweak, and it might be painted a different colour. It's not really a transformation. I'm going to show you some stats in a minute that show why this is an amazing transformation very quickly, and it'll explain why we're already the fastest growing share price. Okay? Let's go.
So, less than 30 months ago, back in March 2015, as a business we were turning over £22 million, making 4.6 million EBITDA. In the last 30 months, we transformed ourselves through a number of acquisitions, and the run rate at August 2017 is now just over 48 million, and we're making 10.5 million.
Now, those numbers have not come through in the official published results yet, because we've bought things part year. So when you buy a thing on the 1st of August, there'll only be 2 months in the half-year results, which come out in a few weeks. There'll only be 8 months in the March results. So it's only in the year to March 19 you're going to see the full effect. So in a sense, you're getting a preview 18 months ahead of what others are going to realise. Okay. Right. This all started with a very simple question amongst the directors, where I sat down and said, some of you are familiar with Skype. What is Skype for business? Is it some kind of fancy software application? Or is it telecoms on your desktop or your laptop? And the honest answer is, it doesn't matter. What was becoming very, very clear at the start of 2015 was that simple line where telecoms was over here and IT was over there was getting very, very blurred. So what we did was this. We said the first natural step from being a telecoms company that sells calls and lines and broadband and connectivity was to move into unified comms. What do I mean by that? I mean, the world got it wrong. 15 years ago, we were all going to carry one fancy device that did everything. I don't know about you, I've got 2 with me today. We've got more and more devices than ever, right? And we need to make them all talk together. So that's what unified comms is. And then we move from unified comms into IT. And this is what I call strategy on one page. This is all I took to the main board. And we said we'll focus it on 2 areas, London and the South East, and the public sector. Now, some of you may spot this is not a London accent. I'm from Wigan. Right. The one thing that I do understand, Brexit or no Brexit, is London will always go faster than the rest of the UK. And I'll show you in a minute how we have some tremendous traction now in London. So that was an economic reason. Why did we go public sector? Exactly the same thing. Even in the age of austerity, the government set a target that they now want 1/3 of all public sector spend to be with small businesses by 2022. I know that because I sit at the Cabinet Office level on the SME panel. I represent the telecoms industry, trying to negotiate what are all the barriers that need to be removed that allows things to move here, right? So it's a very, very simple strategy on one page, and I'll show you how effective it's been. We're winning awards all over the place. The European Enterprise Awards, we won Best Technology in the UK. You can see there's 2 others we won Best Technology in the UK. This week, we'll be announcing to the staff that we're extremely proud to. This week we've been announced as we're now one of recognised as the Global 100. We're one of the top 100 comms and technology companies in the world. Somebody's obviously spotted that a huge transformation is going in, okay? Right, one of our other directors couldn't be here today, so let him do the 1 minute elevator pitch and then I'll give you a bit more detail. This is Richard Burbidge.
Schools, we have more than 4,000 that we provide voice and data solutions to across the country. From our recent acquisition of Atomwide, we now have the largest Microsoft Exchange cluster in Europe with 500,000 users. Office 365, more than 1 million users. And when it comes to desktop and service support, we look after more than 300 businesses in the southeast alone. If you're thinking government or local authority, you'll find us in more than 100 councils. Even the Houses of Parliament are a customer. Talk to us to find out more about our managed services, connectivity and IT support. We're skilled and proficient. That's what makes us AdEPT.
Okay, so the sound wasn't fantastic on that one, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to pick up some of those key points and elucidate, shall we say, in a minute. Okay, right. So, when the sales guys are out, they say we're nearly 50 million sales a year. We're 48 in reality after we bought Atomwide. Now, Atomwide is the deal that we did in August, and you'll see later on that means that we are the chief technology partner of London Grid for Learning. 7 locations in the southeast, 200 people. That's the size of the business you're looking at, okay? So, what do we do? We integrate all your devices seamlessly so that you can see the same things wherever you go. The one bit that we know now is there's even more commonality in telecoms and IT than we ever expected, because effectively all the service desks are remotely managing endpoints. It doesn't matter whether we're logging into your telephone, your iPhone, your Mac, whatever, we're doing it in a similar fashion. We don't own any network. We have deals with every major tier 1 network in the UK, so we will find out where you live and we'll build a network that suits whatever you want. And if you're in multiple locations, we'll mix and match. So we might have some Virgin connections, some BT connections, whatever. And then in terms of voice, we can either do conventional telephony or we'll put the modern stuff where you do it over data networks. Whatever you want, we can do it. And I'll give you some case studies and examples in a minute. So, we operate deliberately under 5 brand names. Now, most people say to me, why did you not just rename the whole thing AdEPT? Well, if I was an egomaniac, then you would. Let's do the story of IKEA and Habitat to illustrate a point. Do people understand that IKEA bought Habitat? Now, the reason why they did it is there's probably huge savings in all the cupboards and, you know, the back of kitchens and whatever. But you would never change the name Habitat to IKEA because you're trying to sell expensive stuff and you just wreck the brand. It's the same here. These two are branded specifically as AdEPT because they sell direct to government users. We keep our small business brand separate because it's going for smaller customers rather than the big things that we'll talk about in a minute. We run an outsourced IT department. Why would I ever change the name of our IT department? It's probably the greatest name for an outsourced IT department I've ever heard. Who are you going to call? It's not Ghostbusters, it's our IT department. So instinctively, after a couple of years, can you ring our IT department, please? You start to think of it as your own team. Now, in August, we bought Atomwide. Now, you'll see in a minute, Atomwide's the partner for all of the schools in London. And we don't change brand names inside an earn-out because we have 12-month earn-out periods, okay? On here, in our world in telecoms and IT, it's hard to see who we don't deal with. It's very unusual to find people who can do both Microsoft and Apple. We can do both. We're dealing with Avaya, Cisco, BT, Vodafone, all of the networks in the UK. We're at the tier 1 top level wherever we go. And the beauty of what we can do is mix and match. Okay? Let's go next. So, to give you an idea of the type of things that we do, 2/3 of the 48 million revenue is in the commercial world. Over 20,000 sites, worldwide brand names, Coca-Cola Europe, ASOS, Citrix are with us. National brand names, Express by Holiday Inn, Halfords, Carluccio's, it goes on and on, okay? Radio stations, Talk Sport. Every single, if you're a sports fan, every single sports report you'll ever hear is down an AdEPT telephone line broadcast at the other end. That's how radio works. Over 200 business centres. Half of all the business centres in London use AdEPT. Now, when we go public sector, we're leading the charge for small businesses to take that big piece of the pie. If you remember, go back to what I said earlier, they eventually want a third of all public sector spend to be with smaller businesses. We now have over 100 councils as customers. That's not one or two. I think this week there was 108. Now there's 400 and something councils overall. We have over 4,000 school contracts with over 2 million users. Okay? NHS trusts is about 14 or 15. 70% of private hospitals in London, if any of you have private healthcare, it is almost certain that it's one of our hospitals. All the ones that you know in London, the famous ones, Portland, Wellington, Harley Street, One London Bridge, the Shard, all of them are AdEPT. I don't think you'd ever thought you'd see a smaller business say, actually we also run the Houses of Parliament, but we do, in terms of the Parliamentary Judicial Service and part of the Cabinet Office. Now, if you're going to be serious in the public sector world, you need to be on what's called the frameworks. It doesn't matter that you don't recognise these numbers. The point is, we're approved on all of the frameworks, which means we get all the tenders now that we need. Okay? That's quite a client list, I think. Cool. Right. The reason why we bought Atomwide in August was London Grid for Learning is one of the few examples where all 33 of the London boroughs have worked together. Virgin supply the physical network connectivity to all the schools, but almost everything that goes on top of that makes a modern school run is now run by AdEPT. So for example, there are something like 48 different apps. We have an app development team. We have a data centre in Orpington. Things like, if your kids pull up an app and say, what homework am I due? Have I done it? Has it been marked yet? If you want to pay for your dinner money or your school trips, if you want to know whether the school's open or not because there's snow, even down to if your kid's in, say, the rugby team and it's delayed in traffic and you're sat there waiting, they can text live and broadcast it out from the coach to tell you, don't worry about it, we're half an hour late on the motorway. Every single thing that you'll need for a modern school is here, okay?
Now on to some numbers. So as Ian said, we are nearly 50 million in terms of revenue run rate, but that's the vanity thing. What's the sanity? Well, EBITDA is our measure because it's our best proxy for cash flow of the business because we don't own any network infrastructure. So to give you an example, 80% plus of EBITDA turns to free cash for us as a business. Now, we're not a new business on AIM. We've been on there for 14 years now. And in terms of EBITDA growth, it has been growing for 14 years. I could have shown you the full trend, but I've just picked out the last 3 years. And you'll see significant progression over the last 3 years. We're up 27% year on year, 16 to 17, 70% between 15 and 17, but actually after the acquisition we've just done in August, if you look at the run rate we're now at, we're up 128% since March 2015, so significant progression.
I said at the start, people, when they say transformation, often don't mean it. 2 years ago, we weren't an IT company. Today, we filter over 1 billion web requests every day. That's transformational. Okay?
We're a business that's undertaken 24 acquisitions since we were formed back in 2003. We funded all of those acquisitions through bank debt, through our partners, which are Barclays and RBS. Currently, we have a bank facility of 30 million in total, which is split as a 25 million revolving credit facility and a 5 million accordion extension, which is not being used currently. Under that bank facility, the key thing for us is maintaining our leverage control in terms of the debt to EBITDA ratio. The maximum level for us is a 3 times limit under the bank facility, but we like to maintain significant headroom below that. We're targeting a level of 2 times, but we do accept that on the day that we might do an acquisition, it might peak above 2 times because we're carrying the debt but we haven't got the profitability. But what we can see as a business is we're 80% recurring revenue, with 80 to 100% of the EBITDA number turning into free cash. So we can see a very quick return and reducing the leverage. So as you can see here, forecasting out significant decrease in leverage over the next 12 to 18 months.
For those of you who are not used to bank borrowing, think of it in terms of when you're doing a mortgage for a house, it's a salary multiple. When you're in the commercial world, it's an EBITDA multiple. Okay, so the big message is it's very, very safe. Right. A lot of people come along with startups and say, this is very exciting, I've got an app development team. Yeah, we have as well. But we've got 50 apps and we've already got more than 2 million users. This is not a startup by any means.
So we are not only growing and profitable, cash generative, we're also paying a dividend, one of the few AIM stocks that can claim all of those. We're following a progressive policy. As you can see here, we've shown the trend over the last 3 years and what the forecast out in the market is. For those of you that will have seen the RNS announcement on the stock exchange at the start of October, we announced a 13% increase, the interim dividend up to 4.25 pence. And the thing that we monitor is the dividend cover. What's our ability to pay the dividend out of our cash flow? We're comfortable at anything 2 times plus, and at the moment you can see there we've been staying at a level of 3 times plus. Even on the forecast numbers, we've got more than 3 times cover, so there's plenty of scope in there for increasing the dividend.
So we're a very old-fashioned business in a very modern world. We make money, we turn it into cash, we dish some of it out to the owners. You know, I grew up with Lord Weinstock at Marconi. I am an absolute cash is king man. That's the way I was brought up. On that bottom bit, this is what I call transformation. 2 years ago, we had no Office 365 users. We now have over 1 million. We have the largest single deployment of Office 365 anywhere in Europe, and it's in the top 10 in the world.
So Ian was talking about transformation, and this is just another example of the transformation. So back in March 2015, the managed service part of our business was just over a quarter at 27%. But in the last 28 to 30 months, it's been transformed, and the managed service part now is more than 2/3 of our revenue stream. So it's fundamentally a different business to what we were 3 years ago, and the opportunities out there are enormous.
One of the points that Richard made on that video that wasn't quite loud enough was, in terms of Microsoft Exchange servers, we have about 500,000 users. It's the largest single Microsoft server deal in Europe. Right. One of the things that's really, really important to me is when we're going down this journey, do we have the support of all the big institutions that are with us? And when we buy businesses, do the owners just disappear? Or do they say, I love this story, I want to put my own money back in again? Okay. Now, I don't hide the fact that my brother, now deceased, was the biggest shareholder, and eventually over time I'm going to have to release bits out of his estate for his children and his widow. This is what's happened in the last 3 months. Our biggest shareholders has increased the stake from 15 to 16.9%. Our second biggest has gone from 5.5% to 11.7%. Our third biggest, at 3%, Business Growth Fund, has given us a convertible. Now, I said to you the share price today is £3.10. They're happy to convert into shares at £3.93. That's the degree of faith that says that Mike's assessment of £4 is correct. Okay? But if you come down here, the guy who was on the video has put some of his own money back in again and bought some more shares. The gentleman in front of you here as finance director has very recently put some of his own money in and bought some shares. This guy here, we bought his IT business. You remember our IT? This was the owner, Tom. Tom loves it. He's put £500,000 of his own money back into AdEPT. Our brand for the small businesses is Comms Group. The 2 guys who owned it have put £150,000 roughly back in again. Sorry, £250,000 between the 2 of them. So I'm sat here saying, it's not just a case of the share price is £3.10 and we've done this incredible acquisition that makes it worth £4. I'm saying that The three biggest institutional shareholders have put more money in. All of the last three acquisitions that we've done, the owners have put more money in, and two of the exec directors have put more money in. That's a fantastic vote of confidence. And that's why, basically, I'll take whatever questions you want, and this is why we need to explain what we've done. I think that's one of the great UK tech stories. Blatter?
You have quite a lot of bank borrowing.
Yeah.
Why are you paying dividend? When you
Right, good question. Okay, because there's no mic, let me repeat the question. When you have quite a lot of bank borrowings, why do you pay out dividends? We formed in 2003, we've been on the market since 2006. A very large chunk of those shareholders are exactly the same ones 11 years later. There's a limit to how long I can carry on without saying you can't have a penny back. So we have to find a balance. But effectively what's happening is we're paying out quarter to a third in terms of dividends and taking 2/3 to 3/4 and putting it back in the business to grow. So it's a question of balance. Sorry?
What about your own shares?
What about my own shares?
Yeah.
Okay. If you go from here and you go onto our web page, you'll see that in the day we announced the deal on 1st of August, I sold some shares. Okay? You could never change the fact that if a chief executive of PLC sells some shares, everybody goes, ooh, what's that all about? I set this up in 2003 by remortgaging my house. 14 years later, I want to pay my mortgage off. I'm 57, right? And I said to the investors, look, if ever we do it, we won't have repeat announcements. Me and the chairman will do it on the same day, which we did. And I'll make sure that it's what I call winning 3-1 at football. I can't change the fact that's an own goal. But we then came along with a deal and took over the whole of IT for the whole of London Education, shifted the EBITDA from 8.45 run rate, and brought in extra funding from one of the big investors. So effectively, that's what I'm saying. I think there was 3 times as much good news as bad news. However, I've not sold it all. Me and my family still own 24% of this. Okay? That's the first time, by the way, if you go back through it properly, 3 years ago, I sold some just to pay a tax bill. That's the first time I've ever taken any money out in 14 years.
what is the term of the money institution? In what term was that?
Right, okay. The question was, what was the terms behind this investment? Okay, so I'll get John to run you through. We've just taken in 7.3 million from Business Growth Fund.
Yeah, so it's a 7.3 million loan, which is a convertible loan, so they can convert it into shares at £3.93 in 3 years' time. And in the interim period, the interest rate on that is a 7% interest rate.
So can we just take the natural next question is, so why did you do that when you've already got 30 million bank funding? John showed you a slide earlier on that said the maximum bank funding is 3 times EBITDA to net debt. We could have bought it in debt, but it would have taken us to about 2.8. Your biggest protection as an investor is my family owns a quarter of this, okay? There is no way, when I've got this to 75 to 80 million, I'm going to wreck it at the end by doing something silly. Right, and therefore, by doing it this way, it means that the debt ratio stays at 2.4, coming down to 2 very quickly. We're very, very conservative as to how we buy things. Give you an idea, on average, we buy 1 business out of every 10 we've looked at. Sorry, I think the question was, who would you consider to be your main competitor? I think the answer is, there isn't one. If I go through those 5 businesses, it depends where it is. So if I come back into the original business, AdEPT in Tunbridge Wells, the connectivity business, then it's still BT. You can't change that bit. If I go to the London IT business, there is no dominant player in London IT. There are 3 or 4 smaller ones that do it. So there's no one name that crops up all the time. If you go to AdEPT Fleet, where they're the Avaya guys who kit out hospitals and things, then again, there's hundreds. There's no dominant one. There's no specific dominant player that we meet regularly. One more.
What is the bank debt cost in comparison to this 7%?
Right, so the question is, what does the normal bank debt cost compared to the convertible?
So the bank debt is on an interest rate ratchet, depending on the EBITDA to net debt ratio. So obviously, the lower that ratio becomes, the cheaper the debt. The range of that is 2.9% at the top end and 1.8 at the bottom end.
So today it's sitting around.
So today it is at 2.9% of borrowings.
Okay. One last, I think we're out of time now. No. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Have a good day.